some people will say that they have an addictive personality. How does that fall in here?
I think, different people will mean different things by that. I feel like probably the biochemical imbalance that's the most likely to cause that kind of person who will say that about themselves is the person with low dopamine.
And why would that be?
Dopamine is, for most people, the thing that they most want to feel. And I don't think that that is wrong, having, gone around it a lot and changed my mind over the years a little bit. But I feel like most of the other things that are considered like feeling really great, like endocannabinoids, like endorphins and opioids, even like oxytocin, although I used to be a big cheerleader for that, and I still am to some degree. These are kind of, maybe oxytocin isn't the case for what I'm about to say, but it's definitely true of the other two. They're, even the natural version of it, they're kind of ways of disassociating or avoiding reality again. Now, people who are big proponents of them will not agree with me. They will say that, when your body is flooded with cannabinoids, whether they're external or, internal, then you're in a higher state of consciousness. I think that's often what they would say. But, the spiritual teacher Sadhguru, I feel like, had a really good take on that, which is, he said whenever people try and defend these kind of things to me, substances, and he was against all psychedelics as well and all that kind of stuff, he would say, look, if someone is flying your plane or if they were your surgeon, would you want them to have high levels of cannabinoids, endogenous or not? And they go, well, no. Okay. Would you want them having high levels of opiates? Well, no. Okay. Yes, it feels euphoric, but it's making you less present. Back to that presence thing, right? So the neurochemical that really makes you present is dopamine. And so there's more to it. It's always a cocktail of different things. But it's what I consider to be true presence, the thing that can mean that you're in that flow state. Whereas, yes, adrenaline will also make you very present, but it puts you into that like vigilant for threat state, which is not what I would call true presence. So this is my belief and understanding that true presence really correlates more with dopamine, not just dopamine, but dopamine and a relative lack of stress chemicals and a relative, good level of calming substances like GABA. But dopamine really being the key. So anyway, a person who has low levels of dopamine on an ongoing basis is going to be very tempted to do behaviors that increase dopamine, and almost everything that I've talked about increases dopamine. So not necessarily all the substances, although most of them do. Although, the few examples of like opioids don't, and benzodiazepines like Valium and things like that don't. But, most drugs will stimulate dopamine to some degree. But of that big list I read before, like, foods, gambling, sex, media, games, etc., they all stimulate dopamine. Dopamine is the feel-good chemical that they specifically stimulate. Dopamine is presence because, let's say, let's ignore the spiritual stuff for a second. There are two things that would make you present from a purely scientific, evolutionary biology point of view. So that's, that view believes that it's all about survival and reproduction, right? Which you could say reproduction, survival of the genes. So you could say it's all about survival of the genes. And so if it's all about survival of the genes, like what is going to get you to be really present? There's either a threat, sort of a fear, or it's a desire. And so the thing that really makes you feel the fear to get away from something, or maybe to attack something, or maybe to hide from something, is adrenaline and noradrenaline. And then the thing that really makes you feel the desire is dopamine. And so both of them will put you into a very clear present state, but only one of them will do it in a way that maintains any spiritual connection. Because when you're in a fight or flight fear state, the very nature of it is that you do not feel connected. And this is on purpose, right? Should you feel connected to the whole world around you if like someone wants to kill you, it's completely unhelpful in that moment. So this is kind of maybe a spiritual perspective, but our understanding is, let's say most animals, have you ever noticed, if you watch wildlife documentaries and you watch like a bunch of zebras, and then, maybe a lion comes along and they all run away, and he runs a bit more and they all run away again. Anyway, eventually the lion gets one, and like a minute later, they're all just eating grass again, like totally not bothered. And so my understanding is that, most of the time we're supposed to be feeling very connected to the universe, very connected to the world around us, the people around us, and all the rest of it. And then it's only when there's an actual threat that we're supposed to feel separate, so that we can deal with that threat. And so, those are different forms of feeling present, right? We can either feel present and connected, or we can feel present but very much in our body, in very much like in a three-dimensional physical universe, rather than an energetic connected universe, which is more how we feel when we have low levels of stress chemicals along with high levels of dopamine. So yeah, I would say that is addictive personality is someone who struggles to feel that good presence. And so what they will tend to do is they will tend to, first of all, do things that stimulate dopamine. And dopamine is very down-regulating, unfortunately, meaning almost everything that you do to increase dopamine, your body doesn't want your dopamine too high. So it will then down-regulate. It will either start creating less of your own dopamine, it will create less of your own receptors, it will desensitize your receptors, or any combination of those things. So any increase in dopamine is almost always very temporary. And when it's not very temporary, it's very depleting. Like in the case of, if you take methamphetamine, you will be on a very consistent dopamine high for several days probably. Whereas, something like cocaine only lasts for minutes. But you've seen as well, people use methamphetamine regularly, what it does to them. Now, is that because they're on such high dopamine? I don't believe so. I think it's the fact that they're also on such high adrenaline and noradrenaline and cortisol. I think that's more the problem. And so there are not many things that stimulate a lot of dopamine without also the adrenaline and noradrenaline, both in terms of substances and even activities, right? All the stuff we talked about, the gambling, the sex, the games, the social media, the shopping, whatever, they tend to stimulate the threat as well. You might say, what's threatening about shopping? Well, what if I'm wasting my money? What if I'm being ripped off? What's threatening with a game? Or what if I lose? What if I'm humiliated? What's threatening about media? Well, most media is, murder or the news, or, do you know what I mean? So there's that element of it. Tight. What's threatening with gambling? I might lose, So that's generally...
There's risk.
Yeah, there's risk, exactly. Thank you for summing it up concisely. So because there's risk involved, then there's the adrenaline and noradrenaline as well. My understanding and belief is that if you can manage to get that dopamine as high as it will go, and a very stable, consistent basis without your body down-regulating it, that's really the key, and we can talk about how to do that. But yeah, so to me, an addictive personality is a low dopamine person. Hey, hope you enjoyed that clip from the Rejuvenate podcast. If you want to watch the full episode that came from, just click on the link above, or if you just want to watch our latest video, then click the link below, and make sure that you subscribe to the channel and like the video. Thank you.